Thank you, sir, for allowing me to speak on this bill. Sir, our journey to resolve commercial insolvency began with the Companies Act of 1956, went to the Sikh Industrial Companies Act, or SICA, in the 80s, to the Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Securities Interest Act, SARFAESI Act, in the early 2000s, to now the present Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. The names of the legislations have changed. Decades have gone by, and the entire government machinery has been put to stop this menace of NPAs. However, there's no perceptible change as far as addressing the issue of NPAs is concerned. Sir, as of 31st March 2008, the gross NPAs in the economy stood at 10.35 lakh crores, and about 85% of these are from loans and advances given by public sector banks. If one looks at the rate of increase also, in 2008 it was about 2.3%, increasing at 2.3% a year, and presently it's increasing at 9.3%. So even the rate of increase is going up, sir. The point I'm trying to drive at, that even though there have been many attempts and there have been many legislations, we have still not been able to contain the rising NPA issue. Now the Honorable Finance Minister has come before us with one more set of amendments to the IBC, aiming to plug some of the loopholes and clarify some of the sections in the code in the debt resolution process, and I certainly welcome this, sir. Sir, if we look at reasons why businesses fail, I just wanted to introspect a little bit, especially considering what has happened recently with Mr. Siddhartha in Bangalore. Some of the other members spoke. But I do think it requires a little bit of introspection. If we look at why businesses fail, it can be for many reasons. It can be because of economic downturns, international downturns, or even domestic downturns at times. They don't necessarily go hand in hand. It can be, particular industries can be going through business cycles, as we're seeing currently, whether it's the aviation sector, the auto sector, or the telecom sector, all three of which are under severe stress. It could be because of faulty strategy by the company, or it could be because of government policy changes, as we can see today in the energy sector with fuel price changes and PPAs being renegotiated and things like that. Even that can lead to business failure. So these are all genuine business failures, if you want to call it that. But then there's also business failure with malicious intent, where they're willful defaulters. So you have genuine business failure on the one hand, and you have willful defaulters and malicious type of failure on the other hand. And I think we need to be able to differentiate these two. While we have to attack one, we have to still support genuine business failure. In any company, if you want to have a robust investment environment, you have to be able to sustain failure as well as success. Sir, in this whole process, banks and lenders also have a very important role to play. And I believe that the accountability with the banks needs to be much higher. Sir, the bankers have to go through a due diligence process to any kind of proposal that's given to them by a business. They have to do their own survey and look at the state of the economy. They have to review business plans. They have to review the leadership team, their track record, and their ability to deliver. And they have to monitor the performance of the business. Now, my question is, how many banks are being held accountable for all of this? And how well are they actually doing their job? If banks are giving loans without evaluating all of these factors, the NPAs will continue to go up, and banks will continue to escape accountability. So I think that accountability of banks and the role that they play in a business being successful or not has to come under scrutiny, sir, a lot more than we have been able to do so far. So there can be no innovation without failure. Business failure is currently being stigmatized. Businessmen are being viewed as criminals if they fail. We have to understand that in every profession there are good apples and bad apples. Business is definitely no exception to that, but neither is any other profession. And even in business, we have to recognize who are the good apples and who are the bad apples without treating everybody the same way. Sir, the whole idea of limited liability, for people to take risks, any entrepreneur to take risk, there's the concept of limited liability is a global concept. But it's in India where all entrepreneurs are being forced to sign personal guarantees for business loans that they take, which is leading to this type of crisis where either the entrepreneurs are unwilling to take that risk, or if they take the risk and fail, they're resorting to extreme steps like suicide and other things like that. So I think, how do we handle risk? Who has to actually be assigned that risk, and how do you actually encourage entrepreneurs to invest more? If we don't distinguish between genuine business failure and willful default, we can't. We'll lose our ability to innovate as a country, and ultimately it'll affect our growth towards 5 trillion or much higher level of economy. The private sector is very crucial in this growth, and if you don't encourage the private sector, it'll be impossible to achieve these goals. So I please request the Honourable Minister to look at this whole situation and see how to give entrepreneurs more capability to take on risk and be able to differentiate between people who are having genuine business failure and willful default, and bring that into the code would be my request, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
no, please.
Just a couple of points and I'll finish. Sir, the first point is Clause 3, which proposes to amend Section 5 of the code, that if an application is not admitted or rejected within 14 days, then the adjudicating authority has to give reasons in writing. And Clause 4, giving deadline for completion of insolvency resolution process within 330 days. So there are other procedural aspects like this which are welcomed by the industry. Sir, I'll just go to the end.
You come to the points and conclude.
Yes, sir. If you look at the Chapter 11 of the U.S. bankruptcy law, it allows an appeal by a debtor to turn things around, sir. In the U.S., the courts can grant this appeal regardless of what the creditors think. This provision is missing that in the legislation. So I suggest for consideration of the Honourable Minister to provide one last opportunity to the debtor, because our ultimate objective is to turn the business around and keep it running, not to close the business.
Yes.
So please look at this, sir. And finally, if you look at Section 5, bracket 21, it talks about what constitutes operational debt. Here, operational debt means claims in respect of goods or services and debts owed to government. I'm concluding, sir. But here it is not mentioned about certain types of debts, such as claims under indemnity agreements, intellectual property licenses, which does not constitute goods or services. So I suggest that the definition for operational debt be modified to include indemnity agreements, intellectual property licenses as well. So with these observations, thank you very much, sir, and I conclude my speech.
Thank you.
I support the
వార్తా వాణి న్యూస్ ఛానల్ ఎప్పటికప్పుడు రాజకీయ, సినీ విశేషాలు, స్పోర్ట్స్ మరియు సాంకేతిక పరమైన మరెన్నో విషయాలను మన ముందుకు తెస్తుంది. మరింత సమాచారం కొరకు వార్తా వాణి న్యూస్ ఛానల్ ని సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేయండి.